Good morning, everyone. I'm Sari Feldman, President of the American Library Association. This morning, I wish to extend my deepest condolences to the families, friends, and loved ones, and those affected because of the attack at the Pulse nightclub and the victims that were left. We come together today not only to pay our respects, but to join the millions of other supporters across our great nation who embrace hope and healing as opposed to bigotry and hate. As one ALA, we stand together with the City of Orlando. We stand with the LGBTQ and Latino communities, and we stand on the side of hope in the face of tragedy. Librarians and library workers are often called upon to help our communities during times of social unrest. We now find ourselves in Orlando after one of the country's most horrific tragedies. We're rolling up our sleeves and doing our best to lend support. We are most powerful when we come together as one ALA, and today, as we gather with our hearts in hand, we are working for a better society, working for understanding, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I thank you for being here this morning, for your support, and I lend my voices to the voices across our profession and the nation who grieve for the innocent lives lost in this senseless attack. I want to thank the National Endowment for the Humanities Chairman William Adams and Karen Kenton, also from the National Endowment for the Humanities, for being here with us today. It is another example of how the relationship between ALA and the National Endowment for the Humanities is so important to our nation. Thank you very much.
Over the course of the past 2 weeks, we have all responded to this unimaginable act of violence in our own ways. For the families and friends of the 49 victims, they are not just names or Facebook photos. They are years of memories. They are a full range of feelings and close relationships. They are distinct voices and emboldened in brave spirits.
They are much more than what has flown past us in news feeds. They are young lives cut short, hopes destroyed, and ultimately dreams permanently deferred. They are silenced futures and unfulfilled potentials. We all lost out on their complexities as loving human beings of varied experiences, cultures, politics, and passions.
For most of us, they are just names and unfamiliar faces. Yet we mourn them from a very internal place, and we feel a deep sense of loss. We mourn them as individuals, and we mourn them as children, as siblings, family members, parents, and as friends who are now gone, taken in an act of sudden violence from inside a place intended to build community, lives taken in a space that was established as a refuge.
The security, defined and defended in our bars as a rite of passage, carries both memory and history. Most community members will wax nostalgic on their first visit to a local gay bar, while some people outside the GLBT culture may think of a gay bar as a place of party. Those inside the GLBT community know bars are much more than that. Just imagine a national history if a bar like Stonewall never existed. We celebrate Pride to honor and memorialize that revolutionary uprising that started in that tiny hole in the wall in Greenwich Village on June 28, 1969. Similarly, Pulse will beat in the hearts of the GLBT Latinx community for years to come, as a place of safety and self-realization, joyful salsa, merengue dancing, and cultural exchange, which is now devastated by fear and senseless violence, but will forever be remembered as a symbol of survival. And like Stonewall, and with time, Pulse will have its place in history as a powerful symbol of equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Many have asked for meaningful action, yet there is not one singular activity we can perform or action to achieve that will bring the victims back, that will change what has happened. It is permanent. It is forever. This is frustrating, and this is infuriating. We want to match our sadness, anger, and rage with equal measure of action, but we cannot. The physics, the science, the reality of life is that we are left with seemingly little to do. The best we can do to honor those who have died is to remember and live out loud. Remember those who have passed. Remember the lives they led. Remember the futures they would have held. And live our lives without regret. Live our lives as a source of strength, of change. Live our lives as a call to action to leave the world better than we found it.
And in their memory, be out and be proud.
And refuse to be afraid.
Good morning. At the time of the shooting, I was in Los Angeles, actually celebrating LA Pride with my husband and friends. What came in the next few hours and days were emotions of disbelief, anger, and sadness, for it seemed that love had lost against hate. I cried for days. I'd be in my office, I'd be jogging, I'd be driving, when all of a sudden I would break down from all the sadness and tristeza. I realized that I was also scared. Being in Los Angeles, 2,500 miles from Orlando, did not make me feel any safer. For the next few days, I didn't feel safe anywhere. At the gym, crossing the street with my husband, in a restaurant, not even in my own home. Slowly, the fear began to dissipate, and I began to realize that one cannot live in fear, and we must continue to live our lives out loud. Yesterday afternoon, Lucia and I visited Pulse, the site of the mass shooting that took many vidas. We went to pay our respects to the fallen, most of whom were part of the LGBT Latinx comunidad. They were part of my community. I didn't know them, but they were my hermanos and my hermanas. And I have read their names out loud on various occasions. The pilgrimage to Pulse gave me fortitude. It gave me hope. I'm thankful for being here in Orlando with my Reforma Familia and my ALA GOBT family, who bring peace and comfort not only to my mind, but to those who have been affected by this tragedy. Your presence, your support, your kind words remind me that love conquers hate.
I went to the Pulse yesterday, and I saw all the flowers and all the rainbow flags and all the words written everywhere, and I knew that the love was greater, that love was embracing their memories and their souls and the families and the lovers. And I stood there, and suddenly I saw the Puerto Rican flag, big and beautiful. And it was so close. Suddenly it all came so close to me. And I could see, just by looking at that beautiful flag, I could see the lives, las madres, los abuelos, las tías, los hermanos, los amantes that were suffering. I saw them all in front of me, and I knelt and I prayed. And I prayed for comfort for the families of the fallen, and I prayed that the solidarity continues to pour, not today, not in the following weeks, in the following years, and that we don't forget solidarity with the fallen and solidarity with their families and solidarity with the wounded. 23 were of Puerto Rican origins, too close to home. The majority of the wounded were also of Puerto Rican origin, too close to home. And I say, it's enough. Enough of the violence in our society as a whole. We need to awaken because we are a society of peace. We are a civil society. And I hope that we awaken, and the ones that are in the decision-making that have that power to make decisions, they awaken too, and they realize that there is no place for weapons of mass destruction that belong in the war field to be in our civil societies. There is no reason for a man that hates, a bigot like that man, to have had that weapon, access to that weapon in his hand. And I hope that we awake. This is the time to be doing something, to take action.
We're going to read a poem by Rodolfo Naya, The Pulse. It was the 12th of June, another hot and humid Florida night. In Orlando, young people gathered at the Pulse Club, enjoying camaraderie, the dance floor pulsating with life, dancers moving to syncopated music, Latin rhythms, goodwill embraces, laughter, friendships, plans for tomorrow, flashing smiles releasing stress and silent motions.
Then the pulse of life ended. A man on fire came from a dark, twisted place, methodically spraying death, massacring our LGBT dancers who felt like cut flowers.
Pulses died in 49 bloodied wrists, blood pressures plunged to zero. Juices of life that would never flow into the future strained the sad dance floor.
Shock spread across the country, across the world, enough grief to last many lifetimes. Lost lives cannot be replaced.
Orlando pulled together, offering condolences and help. From here we sent flor y canto, oraciones, flowers and poems, prayers. Left bereaved on the senseless plain, we wonder who killed the golden rule, love your neighbor.
We mourn our fallen comrades, our gay sisters and brothers, and after grieving, we march to tear down the barricades of hate, bigotry, prejudices. We march to tear down walls that separate.
Rest in peace.
Rest in pride.
I'm so grateful for my colleagues and their thoughtful, moving words about the victims and their families. I told you I couldn't do this. And the loved ones who are left behind in the wake of this tragedy. In times of sorrow and grief, we turn to words, often as beautiful as the words we heard this morning. Words of kindness, words of remembrance, and words of reflection. In the wake of the Pulse tragedy, though, I believe we also need words of action. We hold the power to transform lives through compassion, understanding, and commitment to social justice. The library community's commitment to Orlando is visible through the blood drive. Our LGBTQ readout, armbands in support of diversity, equality, and inclusion, community relief projects, and support of locally minority-owned businesses. My hope is that all of you will organize similar efforts at your local levels, showing once again that libraries and library staff are available and there and can transform communities. I'd like to thank the members of BCALA, GLBTRT, Reforma, and other member groups, and I testify to this, who worked tirelessly for this activity. We have a special speaker. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Sarah Feldman. Thank you.
Before we take our moment of silence and scroll the names, we are very honored to have Congressman John Lewis with us here this morning. The Congressman Let me acknowledge that Congressman Lewis has been fighting for our rights, our civil rights, our human rights, and our rights to be Americans together for his entire life. And it is an incredible honor for me to present him to you this morning.
Good morning. We meet here in Orlando at a very difficult time in the history of the city, the state, our nation, and our world. But as a people who believe in a way of peace, in a way of love, in a way of nonviolence, who believe that with a sense of hope, with moving our lips, our feet, our hands, we can change things. And that's why I tell my friends and my colleagues and people all around America that we must never, ever give up or give in. We must keep the faith and keep our eyes on the prize. There's too much violence, too many killings, and we cannot afford to be silent anymore. We've been quiet too long. To see little children, really babies, mowed down in school, to see people attending a movie, to see people attending church. What is it? Have we lost our way as a people, as a nation, as part of the world community? We have to say we can do better, much better. So I tell you, as someone who participated in the early days of the civil rights movement, and was inspired by Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks and many others, inspired by the books I read, the papers I read, I was inspired to get in what I call in the way. As librarians, you know the power of words, the power of ideas, that there can come a time when you say enough is enough, that you must do something. And that's what some of us are trying to do in Washington, to get the Congress to act. The best living memorial we can build in memory of the hundreds and thousands of people who have been murdered by guns is to act all across our nation, to speak up and speak out and participate in the political process and say never again. We can do it. We must do it. So continue. Continue to stand up and speak out. We can have a victory for the young men and women that gave their very lives, their all, here in this community, in this city. These young souls represented our future. So I said, hold on. Help is on the way. May peace, hope, and one love be with you today.
I did want to finish one thought before I give up the floor. It's such an honor to have him here today. Members worked tirelessly, BCALA, GLBTRT, and Reforma, and literally turned one memorial, which we came here for, to another one. And that kind of testimony is an incredible view of the strength of the association and of the members of the group. So we can't thank you enough for that. As we close this morning, we are going to scroll the names of the victims on the screen behind me, and if you would stand and we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. After the scrolling, the memorial service will be concluded. Thank you so much.